My billionaire husband has anorexia, and the only food he can stomach is whatever his precious little chef, Dahlia Powell, makes for him. I fought. I screamed. In the end, I swallowed my pride for my daughter's sake. On the surface, Dahlia played the innocent lamb, all smiles and deference. But the moment my back was turned, she prepared a feast for me and my parents, a last supper, as it turned out. I ate sparingly and barely survived. My parents died in agony. Afterward, Dahlia gasped and clutched her chest. Oh no, I must have confused the FOTI root with pepper. They look so similar. But surely you noticed the taste was off. Unless you're trying to frame me? The pain was unbearable. I wanted to tear her throat out with my teeth. But my husband shielded her. He slid a forgiveness agreement across the table, his voice flat. This wasn't Dahlia's fault. It was an accident. Besides, you should be grateful it was your parents who died and not us. You know I can't survive without Dahlia. Sign it. When I refused, she threatened my daughter's life. I signed. My daughter was still forced to drink soup boiled with raw aconite. I died choking on hatred and regret, the poison burning through my veins. Now I've been given another chance. When my husband slams that same forgiveness agreement in front of me, I hand the pen back to him. You're the one who should sign this. I'm just a chef who loves cooking. Mrs. Hansen is being paranoid. Dahlia stood before me, eyes wide with practiced innocence. But since you're so worried about competition, let me prove myself. I'll prepare dinner for you and your family tonight. Once you taste my food, you'll see there's nothing between Mr. Hansen and me. She was smug beneath the simpering act. Her words dripped sweetness, but her expression screamed triumph. I wasn't angry, because I realized I'd been reborn. In my past life, I'd exploded at her right here. But Marcus had called me difficult, refused to even look at me. While I was out picking up my parents, he let Dahlia replace our nanny and cook an elaborate dinner. I knew nothing. Not until my parents collapsed mid-meal, writhing in pain. Not until my vision blurred and numbness spread through my limbs. Only then did I understand. The food had been poisoned. I tried to call for help. Marcus and Dahlia stopped me. They stalled deliberately, forcing me to watch my parents stop breathing. Then they used my daughter to make me forgive Dahlia's carelessness. My death. My parents' deaths. My daughter's death. All written off as accidents. Marcus bought off every relative who might have questioned it, and our lives were swept away like dust. This time I smiled. Fine. I'll go get my parents now. Have dinner ready when we return. I looked her up and down. If you'd remembered your place from the start, that you're just a cooking tool, I wouldn't have bothered arguing with you. Her face flushed crimson. I walked past her without another glance and drove to pick up my parents. When I returned, the table was covered with dishes. Just as lavish as before, just as appetizing. I'll give Dahlia this much. Despite her rotten soul, she really can cook. When Dahlia saw me and my parents staring at the food with satisfied faces, she rolled her eyes and snorted, then grabbed the lunchbox and headed for the door. My parents couldn't stand her smug, arrogant attitude and immediately stopped her. You see your employers and don't even greet them? Rolling your eyes at us. What's that supposed to mean? Get over here and serve us while we eat, or I'll have you fired. Dahlia rolled her eyes even harder. Drop the old money aristocrat act. I'm not your maid or your nanny. When I signed my contract with Mr. Hansen, it was crystal clear. I cook for him alone. I serve him alone. I don't take orders from anyone else. If you have a problem with that, take it up with him. Stop putting on a show for me. My parents were livid. They were about to call Marcus right then, but I stopped them. Mom, Dad, you know Marcus has anorexia. Dahlia's the only one whose food he can eat, so she's a bit spoiled. Look, she's holding his lunchbox. She's rushing to deliver his meal. Don't make things difficult. I'm here. I'll take care of you. Dahlia muttered. At least someone knows how to behave. And left with the food container. My parents were still fuming, but she was already gone. Under my coaxing, they finally sat down to eat. To keep their spirits up, I ran around nonstop, picking out dishes for them, ladling soup, bringing tea, pouring water. It wasn't long before both of them, faces darkening, collapsed from their chairs onto the floor. I called out softly and rushed forward to check their pulses. They were still breathing. Barely. I scrambled to grab my phone and call an ambulance. Just like in my previous life. No matter how I searched, I couldn't find the phone I'd left on the coffee table. I didn't need to think twice, Dahlia had hidden it. Without panicking, I rushed toward the door, planning to find the neighborhood security or a neighbor who could call for help. But the moment I reached the yard, Marcus and Dahlia blocked my path. It was like seeing a lifeline. Marcus, quick, call an ambulance. Mom and Dad collapsed right after eating. Their pulses are barely there. If we wait any longer, it'll be too late. And call the police. They only got like this after eating Dahlia's food. She must have poisoned it. She's trying to kill us. Dahlia put on a stricken expression. Impossible. She ran into the dining room to inspect the leftovers, then turned back to Marcus with a wounded look. I know what happened. I was preparing raw aconite to make medicinal liquor for you. But when I was cooking dinner for Mrs. Hansen, I accidentally mistook it for pepper and added it in. Her parents must have eaten it and gotten poisoned. But I only used a tiny bit. Even if they really are poisoned, it won't be serious. So don't go saying things like it'll be too late. You could send them to the hospital tomorrow and they'd still be fine. You're just using this to get rid of me, aren't you? I stared at Marcus, my expression shattered, defenseless. I'm not. I didn't. Dahlia did this on purpose. Please just call an ambulance. Mom and Dad. But before I could finish, Marcus cut me off. Enough. Dahlia didn't do it on purpose. Mild poisoning won't kill anyone. Why are you putting on an act? I'll call an ambulance. But first, you're signing this liability waiver. I'm not saving your parents just to have you turn around and accuse Dahlia of attempted murder. Looking at the familiar forgiveness agreement in front of me, I almost laughed. In my past life, I'd been too panicked to think straight. Now I finally saw it clearly. Dahlia had just left to deliver food. How could she possibly have returned so fast, just in time to stop me from calling an ambulance or the police? And this forgiveness agreement appearing out of nowhere? They were treating me like an idiot. It all pointed to one thing. Today's last meal wasn't an accident. Marcus and Dahlia had planned this together. Maybe my complaints about her had finally pushed him over the edge. So he let her teach me a little lesson. That's why Marcus had been so calm in my past life. That's why he accused my parents of trying to scam Dahlia after they died, because he believed her. He thought a tiny bit of raw aconite couldn't actually kill anyone. When I just stood there holding the agreement without reacting, Dahlia walked up and whispered in my ear. What? Finally figured it out? Finally realized this was all planned. That's right. I can't stand you. Marcus and I are perfect for each other. Why should you get to take my place just because you met him a few years earlier? Either sign this agreement, take your money-losing daughter, and get out of the Hansen family, or watch your parents die right in front of you. And their deaths are just the beginning. Cross me and your daughter's next. Then you. I let out a long breath, glanced at my parents lying on the restaurant floor, and nodded. I'll sign. But I have conditions. Marcus looked surprised. Conditions? You're begging me to save your parents. Keep wasting time, and they'll be dead. What conditions could you possibly have? I ignored him and continued. I want a divorce. Here's the agreement I drafted. I want all your assets, 50% of the shares, and full custody of Lily. The moment I pulled out the divorce papers, Dahlia looked like she might cry from joy. She'd been circling me for years, desperate for me to divorce Marcus, so she could finally become the rightful Mrs. Hansen. But Marcus hesitated. His brow furrowed, and he didn't agree. Dahlia rushed to convince him. Mr. Hansen, you can have more children. Why cling to these things? My body is 100 times better than hers. Want a son? I'll give you a son. Want a daughter? Done. No matter what she said, Marcus wouldn't nod. He kept pushing the forgiveness agreement toward me. I never planned to divorce you. Sign this, and you'll still be Mrs. Hansen. Divorce isn't good for you, for me, or for the child. Not good for you or the child. What he really meant was it wasn't good for his assets. I didn't need to say it. Dahlia realized it herself. Her expression twisted. She glared at me, teeth clenched. Serena, your parents are lying right there, barely alive, and you're using this to extort money from Mr. Hansen? I only put in a little raw aconite, just enough to teach you a lesson. If your parents ended up like that, either they're faking it, or you knew all along and you're running a scam. Is money really that important to you? In my past life, those words would have worked. I'd have gotten angry, taken the pittance they offered, and signed away everything. But I'd already died once. And death teaches you what actually matters. Hurting myself to make Marcus regret it? That's the stupidest revenge imaginable. So I didn't take the bait. I stepped around Dahlia and smiled. So what you're saying is Marcus can't possibly sign because he can't bear to part with the money? I tilted my head. But I remember what you told me. You said you're his most precious treasure. That he can't live without you. That without you his life would be worse than death. Surely he'd give up some material things for you. I let that hang in the air. Doesn't he want everyone to know you're the real Mrs. Hansen? Or does he just treat you like a cook he can replace anytime? The more contempt I poured into my voice, the worse Dahlia's expression got. She latched onto Marcus's arm, pouting, tearing up, doing her whole routine. He weighed his options. Then he signed. But I knew his reasoning. It wasn't entirely for her. He could see I looked perfectly fine, not poisoned at all. And the bodyguard he'd sent to find Lily still hadn't reported back. Nothing was going according to plan. If he refused to sign and I caused a scene, he'd lose far more than half his assets. I tucked away the divorce agreement. Then I took the pen Dahlia offered, opened the forgiveness letter, and didn't sign. Instead, I handed the pen back to Marcus. Actually, I've been thinking. My signature on this is worthless. It needs to be yours. I paused. Because those two people lying in there? They're not my parents. They're yours. The silence that fell over the courtyard was so thick it could have choked a man. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Dahlia's hand, still extended with the pen, trembled slightly before she dropped it. The plastic clattered against the stone pavers, a sound like a gunshot in the quiet. Marcus stared at me. His face, usually an impassive mask of arrogance, fractured. Confusion warred with a dawning, terrible horror. What did you say? I said, I repeated, my voice steady and cold, that the two people lying on the dining room floor, foaming at the mouth and slowly dying from aconite poisoning, are not my parents. They are yours. Or rather, your foster parents. The uncle and aunt who raised you. For a moment nobody moved. It was as if I had spoken a language they couldn't comprehend. Dahlia was the first to break. She let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. You're crazy. You're actually insane. I saw them. I saw that old woman and man come in with you. I served them myself. Did you really look at them, Dahlia? I asked softly. Or did you just see two old people you considered beneath you? Did you bother to look past the clothes? Or were you too busy rolling your eyes and plotting your little victory? Marcus pushed past her, stumbling toward the house. His stride was uneven, frantic. Dahlia followed him, her face pale. I trailed behind them at a leisurely pace, the divorce agreement burning a pleasant weight in my pocket. They burst into the dining room. The scene was gruesome. The two elderly figures were sprawled on the expensive Persian rug. The woman was clutching her throat, her face a mask of purple agony. The man was still, his breathing shallow and rattling. Marcus dropped to his knees beside the man. He turned the face toward him. It was his Uncle George. The man who had taken him in when his own parents died in a car crash. The man who had funded his first startup. The man Marcus claimed to love more than anyone, second only to himself, of course. Beside him lay Aunt Martha. She was the one who had knit him sweaters every Christmas, even after he became a billionaire who wore only Italian cashmere. No, Marcus Guisperth. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated denial. No, no, no. He looked up at me, eyes wild. How? I saw you leave. You said you were getting your parents. I lied. I said simply. My parents are currently on a flight to Bali. I booked it for them yesterday. First class. They deserve a vacation. I walked over to the table and picked up a crystal goblet, swirling the water inside. You see, Marcus, I knew today was a setup. I knew Dahlia was planning something special. So, I thought, why not make it a family reunion? I called Uncle George and Aunt Martha this morning. I told them you were finally ready to reconcile after that argument about the company shares last year. I told them Dahlia had prepared a peace offering feast. I looked down at Dahlia, who was backed against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. They were so happy, Dahlia. They thought you were finally showing them respect. They praised your cooking. They ate every bite. Dahlia screamed. It was a raw, animalistic sound. She scrambled toward Marcus, grabbing his arm. Marcus. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I thought it was her parents. I only used enough to make them sick, to scare them. I didn't mean to kill your family. Her confession hung in the air, ugly and undeniable. Marcus shoved her away so hard she hit the sideboard. You stupid bitch, he roared. Call an ambulance. Now. He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking so violently he dropped it. I watched it slide across the floor to my feet. I didn't pick it up. It's too late for an ambulance, Marcus, I said, checking my watch. Aconite acts fast, especially when prepared the way Dahlia does, with malice. By the time they get here, the heart failure will be irreversible. Unless. I pulled the forgiveness agreement from his pocket, the one he had tried to force on me. Unless we sign this, I said, holding it up. This agreement states that the poisoning was an unfortunate accident caused by the chef's negligence, and that the family forgives all parties involved. It waives all criminal and civil liability. Marcus stared at me with pure hatred. You want me to sign away my right to justice for my aunt and uncle? No. Ikurrakta. I want you to sign away your right to blame me. You see, if the police come now, they'll find a feast prepared by your lover, served in your house. They'll find out I wasn't even in the room when they ate. But you were. And Dahlia was. I leaned in close. If they die, Marcus, it's murder. And who has the motive? The nephew who inherits their remaining shares? Or the mistress who hates the family? You monster, he hissed. I learned from the best, I replied. Sign the divorce papers properly. Not the ones we rushed. The full transfer of assets. The custody. Everything. And I'll give you the antidote. His head snapped up. Antidote? I brought a traditional herbalist with me. He's waiting in the car outside. He has a decoction of licorice and honeysuckle, prepared specifically to neutralize aconite. But he doesn't come in until the ink is dry. Marcus looked at his dying uncle. He looked at Dahlia, who was sobbing on the floor. He looked at his empire, crumbling around him. He grabbed the pen. The next hour was a blur of chaos. Marcus signed everything. He signed over the mansion, the offshore accounts, the stock portfolio. He signed full custody of Lily to me, with zero visitation rights unless supervised. He essentially signed his life away to save the only family he actually cared about. Once the papers were safe in my bag, I signaled out the window. Dr. Chen, a stern-faced man I'd hired days ago, rushed in with his medical kit. He administered the emetics and the herbal antidote with practiced efficiency. It was messy. It was violent. But within 20 minutes, Uncle George and Aunt Martha were breathing easier. Their color was returning, though they remained unconscious. The ambulance arrived shortly after. I had called them the moment Marcus signed, Despite my earlier threat, I wasn't a murderer. Unlike them, as the paramedics loaded the elderly couple onto stretchers, Marcus slumped against the wall, drained. Dahlia was huddled in the corner, chewing on her fingernails, her eyes darting around like a trapped rat. I stood by the door, watching them. You saved them, Marcus rasped, looking at me with a strange mix of loathing and grudging respect. You actually had an antidote. I'm not you, Marcus, I said. I don't play with lives. You took everything, he said, his voice rising. You stripped me bare. I took what I was owed, plus interest for emotional damages. I patted my bag. The house is mine now. You have 24 hours to vacate. Take your chef with you. I'm sure you two will be very happy together in a smaller setting. Dahlia stood up then, her face blotchy and tear-streaked. The fear was fading, replaced by that familiar, venomous anger. You think you've won? You think Mr. Hansen is finished just because you took his money? He's a genius. He'll rebuild. And I'll be right there with him. She walked over to Marcus and placed a hand on his shoulder. We don't need her, Marcus. We have each other. And I can still cook for you. You need to eat. Marcus looked at her hand on his shoulder. Then he looked at her face. For the first time in years, the fog of infatuation seemed to clear from his eyes. He didn't see the innocent, talented girl he'd convinced himself she was. He saw the woman who had almost killed his aunt and uncle because she was too lazy to check who was sitting at the table. He saw the liability that had cost him his fortune. He shrugged her hand off. Get away from me, he muttered. Dahlia froze. What? I said get away. Marcus roared, the sound echoing in the empty dining hall. You poisoned them. You stupid incompetent. I did it for you, she shrieked back. I was trying to get rid of her. You wanted her gone too. Don't act like you're innocent. I never told you to kill anyone. You implied it. You said she was in the way. You said, get out. Marcus pointed a trembling finger at the door. You're fired. Get out of my sight before I kill you myself. Dahlia recoiled as if slapped. She looked at him, then at me. Her face twisted into a snarl. Fine. Throw me away. See if you survive. You can't eat anything without me. You'll starve, Marcus. You'll rot. She stormed out, slamming the heavy oak door behind her. Marcus slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, head in his hands. The great billionaire, reduced to a squatter in his ex-wife's house. I felt nothing. No pity. No triumph. Just a profound sense of closure. 24 hours, Marcus, I reminded him. And don't steal the silverware. It's part of the assets. I turned and walked out into the cool night air. My phone buzzed. It was a message from the private investigator I'd hired to find Lily. Subject secure. Nanny intercepted at the airport. Child is safe. Bringing her to you now. I finally let out the breath I'd been holding since I opened my eyes in this second life. Life, I discovered, is remarkably sweet when you aren't living in fear. 3 months passed. I sold the mansion. It smelled too much of betrayal and old medicine. I bought a bright, airy penthouse in the city with a view of the harbor. Lily was thriving. She was taking piano lessons and had started a little garden on the balcony. She didn't ask about her father. In her young mind, he had always been a distant, shadowy figure anyway. I used the money, Marcus's money, to start a foundation for victims of domestic abuse. It was satisfying work. Every check I signed felt like another nail in the coffin of my past self. But the past has a way of scratching at the door. I saw them on the news first. Fallen tycoon hospitalized in critical condition. The footage showed a gaunt, skeletal Marcus being wheeled into a county hospital. He looked like a ghost. His cheekbones were razor-sharp, his eyes sunken into dark pits. He had reportedly collapsed on the street. The reporter continued. Sources say Mr. Hansen has been suffering from severe malnutrition. He has allegedly refused all food for weeks. I turned off the TV. I knew why. Dahlia was gone. His psychological block, his anorexia that only allowed him to eat her food, hadn't magically disappeared just because he fired her. He was starving himself to death, trapped in the prison of his own mind. A week later, I got the call. It wasn't Marcus. It was Uncle George. Serena. His voice was weak but warm. How are you, dear? I'm well, George. I'm sorry I haven't visited. It's complicated. I know, he sighed. I know everything. Marcus told me. About the divorce. About the poisoning. About who he thought he was protecting. There was a silence. He's dying, Serena, George said softly. The doctors say his organs are shutting down. He won't eat. He can't eat. He just vomits everything up. He keeps asking for Dahlia's cooking. But she's nowhere to be found. I'm sorry, George, I said, and I meant it. I didn't hate the old man. But that's not my problem anymore. I know, George said. But he wants to see you. He says he has something to give you. Something he hid. Something not in the divorce settlement. My grip on the phone tightened. If this is a trick. It's not. He's on a ventilator, Serena. He's not tricking anyone. Please. For the sake of the man he used to be. For Lily's father. I looked at Lily, who was watering her strawberries in the sun. She looked so happy. So free. One visit, I said. 10 minutes. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and decay. Marcus looked worse in person. He was a skeleton wrapped in paper-thin skin. Tubes ran in and out of him like the strings of a broken puppet. When I entered, his eyes fluttered open. They were cloudy, but they focused on me with a desperate intensity. "Serena," he wheezed. His voice was a dry rattle. "Marcus." I stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed. "George said you had something for me." He tried to smile, but it looked like a grimace. Direct, as always. He gestured weakly to the bedside table. "Drawer." I opened it. Inside was a small velvet box and a thick envelope. "The ring," he whispered. "Grandmother's ring. You always liked it." I hid it. Didn't want her to have it. I opened the box. It was a stunning sapphire ring, an heirloom I had admired years ago. He had told me it was lost. And the envelope? "A letter," he said. "For Lily. For when she's older." Explaining that I wasn't always a monster. I looked at the pathetic figure in the bed. This was the man who had terrified me? The man who had controlled my every move? He looked like a child now. A broken, starving child. "Is that it?" I asked. "No," he gasped. Tears began to leak from his eyes. I'm hungry, Serena. I'm so hungry. It hurts." "Then eat," I said, pointing to the untouched tray of hospital jello. "I can't," he sobbed. "It tastes like ash. It tastes like poison. Only she's gone, Marcus. She tried to kill your family. She hates you." "I know," he wailed. "But I need her food. I need it." It was pathetic. It was horrifying. It was his karma. Suddenly, the door banged open. A woman in a disheveled hoodie stormed in. Her hair was greasy, her face gaunt and wild. It was Dalia, but not the polished, arrogant chef I knew. She looked like a junkie. "I heard he was here," she shouted at the nurse trying to restrain her. "I heard he's dying. He needs me." She broke free and rushed to the bed. She was clutching a thermos. "Marcus," she cried, her eyes manic. "I brought it. I brought the soup. Your favorite. Cream of mushroom." Marcus's eyes widened. He looked at her with fear, but also with a ravenous, undeniable hunger. His body arched toward the thermos like a flower to the sun. "Dalia." He whimpered. "Get out," I said to Dalia. "You're trespassing." She spun on me, baring her teeth. "You shut up. You stole his money, but you can't feed him. Only I can keep him alive. He's mine." She frantically unscrewed the thermos. The smell of mushroom soup filled the room, rich, earthy, and strangely pungent. "Drink, Marcus," she urged, pouring some into the cap. "Drink and you'll feel better. And then we can go. We can go away together. I'll take care of you. We don't need money. We just need this." She held the cup to his lips. Marcus trembled. He looked at me. Then he looked at the soup. "Don't," I said quietly. "Marcus, look at her. Look at her eyes." He looked. And in Dahlia's eyes he saw it. The madness. The obsession. The possession. If he drank that soup he would live. But he would be her prisoner forever. He would be a slave to the only person who could feed him. A woman who had already proven she was capable of murder. He would be alive, but he would never be free. He looked back at me. He looked at the photo of Lily I had placed on the table. He closed his mouth. He turned his head away. "No," he whispered. Dahlia froze. "What?" "No," Marcus said louder this time. "I don't want it." "You have to," she screamed. "You're dying." "Let me die," he rasped. "Better dead than with you." Dahlia stared at him. Her face crumbled. The thermos slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor, shattering the liner. Soup splashed everywhere. And as it sizzled against the linoleum, a distinct, acrid smell rose up. The smell of chemicals. The smell of something that wasn't food. "What is that?" the nurse asked, horrified. I sniffed the air. "Rat poison," I said. She wasn't here to save him. She was here to finish the job. Dalia laughed. It was a high, broken sound. "If I can't have him, if he won't be mine, no one gets him. He belongs to me. I made him. I made his hunger." Security guards burst into the room. They tackled Dalia as she tried to lunge for Marcus's throat. She was screaming obscenities, screaming about love and food and death, as they dragged her away. Marcus lay back on the pillows. He looked at the bubbling, poisonous mess on the floor. She put it in." He whispered. "She always was a little heavy-handed with the seasoning," I said. Marcus closed his eyes. A strange peace settled over his face. "Serena?" "Yes." "Thank you." "For what?" "For not letting me drink it." He died 3 hours later. His heart simply stopped. He died hungry, but he died free. The funeral was small. Uncle George and Aunt Martha were there, leaning on canes. I stood in the back with Lily. She didn't cry. She just watched the coffin go down with curious eyes. Dalia was in a secure psychiatric facility. The police found her apartment filled with shrines to Marcus, and jars of dangerous chemicals labeled as spices. She would never cook for anyone again. I walked George and Martha to their car. "He left you something else," George said, handing me a key. "A safety deposit box. He set it up the day before the incident at the house. Before he signed the papers." "I don't want anything else," I said. Take it, Martha insisted. Please. I went to the bank the next day. Inside the box was a single USB drive and a recipe book. I plugged the drive into my laptop. It was a video file. Marcus, looking healthy but tired, sitting in his office. Serena, the video, Marcus said. If you're watching this, I'm probably dead. Or ruined. Or both. He sighed, rubbing his face. I know about the poison. I always knew. I froze. Not the aconite, he continued. The addiction. I know Dahlia put something in the food from the start. Mild opioids. Addictive herbs. I found out a year ago. I tried to fire her. But the withdrawal. God, the withdrawal was worse than death. I was weak. I was a coward. He looked into the camera, his eyes sad. I let her stay because I needed the fix. And I let her treat you like dirt because I was afraid she'd cut me off. I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. But I wanted you to know that I wasn't just cruel. I was a junkie. The recipe book in the box, it's hers. I stole it. It has the chemical formula she used. Give it to the police. Ensure she never hurts anyone else. And Serena? You were always the strong one. I should have eaten your cooking when I had the chance. The screen went black. I sat there for a long time. So he knew. He had been a victim too, in a way. A victim of his own weakness, yes, but also of a predator who used food as a weapon. It didn't excuse what he did to me and Lily in the past life. It didn't excuse the negligence. But it made him human. I took the recipe book to the police. It was the final piece of evidence needed to lock Dahlia away for life. 5 years later. Mom. Hurry up. The guests are arriving. Lily, now 10 years old and bursting with energy, tugged on my apron. I'm coming, I'm coming. I laughed, wiping flour from my cheek. I walked out into the dining room of my restaurant, the Second Chance. It was fully booked. The air smelled of rosemary, garlic, and roasting meats, honest, clean food. No poisons. No secrets. Uncle George and Aunt Martha were at their usual table in the corner. They waved at me. They had become surrogate grandparents to Lily, doting on her to make up for the lost years. I walked to the kitchen pass. My head chef, a burly man named Leo who believed that butter was a food group, grinned at me. Order up for table 7, boss. I looked at the plate. It was a simple mushroom soup. Rich, creamy, safe. I picked it up and walked to table 7. A young couple sat there, looking at each other with stars in their eyes. Here you go, I said, placing the bowls down. Made with love. And nothing else. They smiled and dug in. I walked out onto the terrace. The city lights twinkled below. I thought about the forgiveness agreement. I thought about the pen hitting the floor. I thought about Marcus starving in a hospital bed. I had been given a second life. A chance to rewrite the ending. I didn't just survive. I didn't just win. I lived. And oh, did life taste good.